Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, I should say. Welcome to the February 6, 2023 school board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'd welcome all, we have a number of visitors today. We would like to welcome you to our meeting, and some of you are going to play a role in it pretty soon here. So first up, we have our Pledge of Allegiance. I believe we have two students from Adams Elementary, Nevaeh and Luis, I believe. And Mr. Kaplicki, would you like to introduce our students?
Come on down.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce.
I don't think it's.
Oh, no.
There it is.
You just have to get up on it. I think.
Thank you, Jose, as always. Again, I know we're just a couple days into February, but I do want to extend again, thank you for the board in January with board appreciation. Thank you for you guys, all your hard work. I'd like to introduce some amazing people. Of course, Mr. Contreras, our assistant principal, helping me out with the microphone. Ms. Kruckenberg, who is our principal intern out here. And then our student's teacher, Miss Carrie Delozier Valencia. And then we also have our stars of the show here. We have Luis Duarte. And we have Nevaeh Segura. And so these two are going to do the pledge for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Again, thank you. Do you guys have any questions for our two kids? Okay. So we are going to talk about the, you guys remember our character word?
Yes.
Okay. Nevaeh, you want to start with us?
February's character word of the month, patience, the capacity, habit, or fact of being patient.
Can you give us an example maybe, guys?
No pressure.
Maybe waiting for the dentist.
Oh, good.
The one earlier today was with my brothers and sisters. So that's,
There you go.
so they were awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I've already had a chance to chat with you a little bit, but our other board members might want to say a few words or ask you a couple questions. So I'll start with Director Rice.
Luis and Nevaeh. Luis and Nevaeh, thank you for being here today. I don't know if you maybe know it's Monday, so you didn't have to get out of school early, did you? You didn't get excused to be here, right? Well, thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We appreciate that. And what grade are you both in?
Me and Luis are both in 5th grade.
So next year is middle school, huh? What middle school will you be going to?
Probably Washington Middle School.
And Nevaeh, you as well?
Yeah.
Well, good luck. I know it's a big transition from elementary school to middle school. At elementary school, you're the top dogs, you're the 5th graders. But when you get into middle school, you're the bottom of the pack, you're the 6th graders. And so you've got to wade through all of that. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your plans with us.
Hi, Luis. Hi, Nevaeh. My name is Graciela. Wow, that's really loud. Thank you guys for being here. You did a really good job on the Pledge of Allegiance and sharing the character word of the month. What is something that you both are excited about when you think about going into 6th grade?
The thing I'll probably be excited about is like meeting new people and just seeing all the new teachers and different classes there will be.
Awesome. How about you, Luis? That's okay. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for being here. You guys did a good job.
Don't worry, I have no questions. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and helping us out with the Pledge of Allegiance today. And I want you to know that we really hope that you have a wonderful rest of the school year, and we wish you nothing but the best when you go to middle school next year. Thank you both.
Thanks again for being here, and you're welcome to stay and see what happens at a board meeting, but if you'd like to have your afternoon free, you're welcome to go too. So again, we appreciate having you, and hopefully we'll get over to Washington, and if I see you there, remember to say hi.
We wanted to highlight our valuable stakeholders and our parents who do such an incredible job with our CEA surveys and such. So I wanted to also kind of congratulate our parents for being here and being active teammates with Adam. So thank you.
Yes. And now we'll have our land acknowledgement.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Cliticat, and Yakima counties. Today, we honor the Native people who are tied to the land through history, legends, and cultures.
We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial. An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture.
It also honors the truth.
As a school district, we'll continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Thank you. And next up, we have a number of proclamations and recognitions to occur today. So it's always nice to recognize important things happening in the community and important things happening with our volunteers. And Mr. Koplicki mentioned parents. Well, we couldn't function without the support of our parents, and we'd like to acknowledge first some of our parent groups, and Graciela will take the lead there.
Yes, thank you. It's my honor to read the National PTA recognition today. National PTA celebrates 126 years. Founded on February 17, 1897, the National PTA is the oldest and largest child advocacy association in America and has been the conscience of the country on issues affecting children and youth. Today's PTA is a network of millions of families, students, teachers, administrators, and business and community leaders devoted to the educational success of children and the promotion of family engagement in schools. One of the most important parts of ensuring our children receive the best possible education is cultivating a strong partnership between parents and teachers. When parents and teachers work together to improve their children's education, our students get the support they need to fulfill the potential of their bright futures. In honor of National PTA Founders Day, the Yakima School District Board of Directors would like to acknowledge the substantial role that PTA and other parent groups have played locally, regionally, and nationally in supporting parent involvement and working on behalf of all children and families. Thank you. Dated the 6th day of February 2023, Yakima School District Board of Directors.
And next up, we would like to recognize the number of PTA leaders. If you are in the room this evening, we would like you, when your name is read, we would like you to come forward and we'll shake your hand and present you with a certificate. Director Rice will introduce this portion of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. As Graciela indicated, February 17th is National PTA Founders Day. In 1897, 2,000 parents, mostly moms, and some legislators and some dads and some teachers, totaling 2,000 people, assembled in Washington, D.C., and formed the National Congress of Parents. After a few years, Well, the founding women of this organization were Alice McClellan Burney and Phoebe Apperson Hearst. And this organization was founded even before women could vote and before public advocacy was something that people took on as a role. But these women believed that mothers would support their mission and eliminate threats that endanger children. So in early 1897, they started a nationwide campaign. As I said, 2,000 people assembled in Washington, D.C., and then within the next 20 years, 37 chartered state congresses came into existence. In fact, in Washington State, the State Conference of Mothers was founded in 1905. In 1970, the National Congress of Parents and Teachers, otherwise known as the National PTA, and the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers, which was founded by Selena Sloan Butler in Atlanta, Georgia, merged to better serve the needs of all children. As the largest volunteer child advocacy organization in the nation, the National PTA is the conscience of the country for children and youth issues. Through advocacy as well as family and community education, National PTA has established programs and called for legislation that improves our children's lives in such areas as creation of kindergarten classes, child labor laws, public health service, hot and healthy lunch programs, juvenile justice system, mandatory immunization, arts and education, and school safety. As you can see, parents have been elemental in making sure that the world that children face is a place where they're safe and they're cared for. So what I would like to do now is turn it over to Ryan, who will read a few names. We're going to share this today.
So in recognition of National PTA Founders Day, the Yakima School District Board of Directors would like to acknowledge the substantial role that PTA and other parent groups play locally, regionally, and nationally in supporting parent involvement and working on behalf of all our children and families. So thank you. As I read your name, if you happen to be here, please come on up, because we do have certificates. Israel Moreno from the Adams PTO, Jacina Rodriguez of the Barge Lincoln PTO, Danielle Woodcock from the Gilbert PTO, and Chelsea Jones from the McClure PTA. Graciela.
We also have Natasha Holder, McClure PTA co-president. Marco Campos, Nob Hill PTA president. Thank you so much. We appreciate all your work.
Thank you so much.
Alicia Campos Soto, Nob Hill PTA vice president. Susan Stoneman, Ridgeview PTO president. Barbara Sleater, Whitney PTO president.
Next up, we have Brianne Smith, Wilson Booster Club president. Jennifer Elwood, Davis Band Booster Club president. Caitlin Tetlow, Davis Cheer Booster Club president. Angela Honer, Davis Fast Pitch Booster Club president. Stephanie Salinas, Davis Pirate Girls Basketball Booster president.
And next we have Heather Quesnell, Eisenhower Drama and Renaissance Booster Club president. Liliana Vargas, Eisenhower Band Booster Club President.
And you have a certificate for her.
Thank you for what you're doing for our kids. Andrew Ward, Eisenhower Baseball Booster Club President. And Shelley Davis, Eisenhower Girls Basketball Booster Club President.
To round out the list here today, we have Shannon McNeil of the Eisenhower Dance Booster Club, Alyssa Skiles of the Eisenhower Class of 2023 Booster Club, Gloria Spurrier, Eisenhower Football Booster Club, Scott Miller, Eisenhower Speech and Debate Booster Club, and Tracy Hoyt, Eisenhower Track and Field and Cross Country Booster Club. Again, we thank all of our volunteers for their assistance and support of our students.
Next up, we have 3 different proclamations today. We have a lot to proclaim, starting with Director Beckett.
CTE?
CTE.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, President Walker. Whereas February 2023 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education, and whereas Career and Technical Education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and whereas students in CTE programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement, and whereas CTE provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including construction, healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. And whereas offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education leads to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials, and whereas ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce is a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued economic growth and competitiveness. And whereas February 23rd, 2023 marks the 106th anniversary of the signing of the Smith-Hughes Vocational Education Act of 1917, which was the first major federal investment in secondary CTE and laid the foundation for the bipartisan, bicameral support that CTE that continues today. Now, therefore, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, hereby proclaims February 2023 as Career and Technical Education Month and encourages all people in our state to join him in this special observance.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Next up, we have Black History Month proclamation, Director Rice.
Thank you, Norm. Black History Month proclamation, February 1 to 28, 2023. Whereas Black History Month affords special opportunities to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation. And whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of all our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equality for minority groups, and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. And whereas, as we journey through a more united nation, let us use the commemoration I don't even know that I said that right, of Black History Month to serve as a reminder of the need for meaningful dialogue and shared commitment to actions that uplift and empower all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Yakima Public Schools do hereby proclaim February 1st through February 28th, 2023 as Black History Month and celebrates the rich history with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies within the schools. Dated this 6th day of February 2023, Yakima School District Board of Directors.
Thank you, Martha. And last but not least, an area dear to my heart as a former school counselor, it is School Counseling Week proclamation. From the state of Washington, proclamation, whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim February 6th through 10th, 2023 as School Counseling Week in Washington. And I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance, signed this 30th day of January, 2023. Okay, next up we have a report from Mr. Byron Gerard, Executive Director of Career and Technical Education. Would you like to introduce?
Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to pass this to Dr. Rodriguez, from our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning.
Board President Walker, members of the board, we're excited this evening to share with you a presentation giving you a detail on the work that's been happening in our Career and College Readiness Department. The focus is really around CTE, or Career and Technical Education, but you're going to hear about lots of great work that Executive Director over Career and College Readiness, Byron Gerard, has been busy at for the last 18 months since he joined us here in Yakima. And as you may be aware, Mr. Gerard has also been serving as our interim principal at YV Tech this year. So he's wearing many hats and getting a very up-close personal look at many of our CTE programs throughout the district. So I just wanted to acknowledge his efforts this year as he's taken on a considerable additional workload to support our students and staff. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gerard.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Walker and members of the board. Oop, this is really hot. This is such a great news story for Yakima. Yakima has invested heavily into career and technical education programs. And so, it's just my honor to bring to you today just such a great news story on behalf of all of our teachers and counselors, administrators that work so hard in our district. Before we dive into CTE in Yakima, like Dr. Rodriguez mentioned, I've been supporting YV Tech this past few months, and YV Tech is also just such a great news story for our community. What is special about YV Tech is that skill centers, regional skill centers, evolved in 1970 in the state of Washington, and YV Tech was one of the earliest skill centers on the scene back in 1977. YV Tech is one of 14 skills centers in Washington State, and a skills center receives unique funding from the state. It has unique accountability measures from the state, and it's governed by a kind of a consortium of superintendents from our region, from our Yakima region. Yakima is the host district, and so we provide a lot of administrative supports, but YV Tech supports students from all over the greater Yakima Valley. 38% of the 900 students come from our Yakima schools, but the rest of those students come from really everywhere, north and south, and east and west of us. So because YV Tech is such a unique preparatory CTE program with unique goals and funding and accountabilities, today's presentation will not be inclusive of YV Tech. It deserves really its own presentation. So today we're going to focus on the Yakima School District program, so our middle and high school programs. As you're aware, our career and technical education programs are part of our career and college readiness department, which we are proud to be part of our teaching and learning department. CTE handles things, like funding for CTE programs. We govern college credits and credit equivalencies and graduation pathways and industry experiences. Career and college readiness also supports our district with college and the high school and running START and AP and IB programs. We have a new partnership with ASU to provide college credit in our high schools. We also provide other secondary initiatives like our course waivers that we all hear about every year, and our high school course guidebook, and our guaranteed college admissions program. So for today's presentation, to start us out, I want to lead us through some CTE vocabulary. I want to bring you through some of these terms just so as you're listening to the presentation, and also if you're interacting in the community or in our schools, or even as you're encountering legislative priorities, you'd have a better understanding of some of the unique and similar vocabulary terms that CTE has. So today we're going to go through CTE courses, career clusters, program areas, career pathways, graduation pathways, CTE course equivalencies, dual credit, and course equivalencies. So some of those sound really familiar, but I think as you'll learn here in the next few minutes, they have very definite definitions individually. Right now, our courses, so Yakima has 72 CTE courses in Yakima. We have CTE classes in every one of our middle and high school programs. An area of opportunity for us is we currently don't have CTE courses in our online programs, and that's an area of opportunity that I've had conversations with those two principals about, is about how can we figure out how to do that in our school district. Some 5-year data is 5 years ago, Yakima had 62 CTE courses in Yakima. So even through that pandemic and the challenges of providing hands-on CTE courses through that remote learning opportunity, we are still growing, and we have currently 72 programs. So you might see the term career clusters. Career clusters is really how we get these courses, these CTE courses. A career cluster is a national framework that identifies pathways and career frameworks to help school districts and states develop program areas and goals for their CTE program. So when you hear a career cluster, there are 16 nationally recognized career clusters. Yakima schools, we currently have 12 of those career clusters. So it's a great news for our program. So from those career clusters, then, our state takes those and has developed 6 program areas. So we'll hear a lot about program areas. So from those career clusters, we've condensed them down to program areas in STEM and health sciences, family consumer science, business and marketing, agriculture, and skilled and technical sciences. From those program areas, we also identify, that's how we identify what we need to build our frameworks. So frameworks are tools that our CTE teachers use to build their curriculum, to build their lesson plans, and they're just essentially standards that they have to meet within their courses and within their lesson plans. Frameworks are pretty detailed. They can be anywhere from 20 to sometimes 60 or 70 pages long, so they're pretty involved for our CTE teachers to wrap their heads around. So from those career clusters, program areas, and career pathways and courses, we then use those to develop our career pathways. So we hear a lot about pathways, and what we want to do is we want to make our students' middle school and high school experiences very intentional and with purpose, and that they feel like they have a plan and they kind of know where they're going. Their plan and where they're going could change several times along their journey, but we want to help them develop a plan. So we use tools like this career tree. If you walked around our schools, you'll see career trees in most of our CTE classrooms. And these career trees help students visualize what a career pathway would look like if they were right out of high school and they entered that career field. Or if they went to a 2-year program, what career opportunities might be available to them, and then higher education and beyond, what career opportunities might be available to them. Sometimes our teachers actually give the students leaves, and the students will write their names on leaves, and they'll actually go up to that poster in their classroom and they'll put their name on that tree, and that's where their goal is, and that's what they're focusing on. And sometimes those leaves change levels, and sometimes they change posters, and that's just a great just tool for kids to visualize their pathway. So we use those trees and those posters to visualize their high school and beyond plans. So as you know, as you probably heard, every student in middle and high school has to begin articulating a high school and beyond plan. So we start that work in 7th grade. We use a tool in this district called Zello. Zello is an online tool that helps middle school students explore different careers, different college opportunities, and then they work through that. In their 8th grade year, they start to develop a high school and beyond plan, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but a high school and beyond plan is a requirement of our state that every student must have a plan of what they would like to do and where they would like to go beyond our high school years. And so we help them articulate that. We have staff that are dedicated in our schools to help them navigate those requirements, and sometimes those plans change, but most of the time students use that plan to navigate what classes they take and what careers or college opportunities they're going to pursue or at least look at. So from Zello and from our career pathways, we then want to bring to you and talk to you about graduation pathways. So graduation pathways are very different than career pathways. So in 2019, House Bill 1599 was passed in our state, and previously to House Bill 1599, a high school student had to pass all of their high school classes, get all of their high school credits, but then even if they passed all their high school classes, if they couldn't pass the Smarter Balance test, they couldn't pass that exam or those exams, series of exams, it was a barrier. They could potentially not graduate from high school. So in 2019, our state developed these graduation pathways. So one of 8 pathways is a CTE pathway. So students can choose, in addition to their courses, they can choose to meet those graduation requirements through AP or IB classes. They can qualify for graduation through ACT and SAT scores. They can take the ASVAB test. They can still take the Smarter Balance exams, but they can also satisfy that graduation requirement through a sequence of CTE courses. And this was a game changer for many of our students, and this is such a great news story for our high school students in Washington. So this is a snapshot of what our sequences look like. So a course sequence for CTE, to meet the graduation requirement, a student must take 2 years of CTE classes. So 2 classes, 1-year classes each, that are in a sequence. And a sequence of rigor or a further development or further skill building. Currently, we have 94 sequences available here in Yakima. This is just a small snapshot of what those sequences look like. This is a planning tool that our teachers often use. So when a student chooses the CTE graduation pathway for those course sequences. They choose a program area, like what you see in red there, and then they choose a course within those program areas, and they can take, 1 year, they could take, example would be human body systems, and the next year they could take and pass health sciences, or they could choose, material sciences and CAD drafting, or they could take commercial advertising and art and theater design. And when they pass those 2 years of CTE courses, then they satisfy their graduation pathway requirement. So for students that are hands-on learners, that don't love taking tests, this is just a great way for students to meet those graduation requirements. We also are currently working on really every week identifying new pathways, additional pathways. In fact, in the weeks to come, you'll see an approval request to recognize and approve probably twice as many pathways as you see here today. And that's just a great opportunity for our kids, because it's just even more sequences that they can match up to satisfy that graduation requirement. So I want to talk to you a few minutes about dual credit and equivalencies. So there are many, many ways in Yakima to earn college credit. CTE has some of those ways. So this isn't all of the ways you can earn college credit, but some of the ways that we have provided in the CTE department for students to earn credit. We have articulation agreements with the Yakima Valley College. We have 23 courses articulated with them, and in all those courses there are 88 potential credits that college credits the students can earn. We also have some articulation agreements with Perry Tech. So Perry Tech doesn't offer college credit, but they offer scholarships. And so if a student takes one of their qualifying courses, currently there are 10 courses, then when they complete that course, Perry Tech offers them a $1,000 scholarship if and when they join their college. CTE equivalencies, so this is where it even gets more intricate. So CTE equivalency isn't a college credit, but it's where you can take a CTE class and it can count for CTE credit, but it could also count for math or science or English or even art. And so we currently have 49 CTE classes that we have worked with our teams to articulate for other content area or other graduation requirements. So this is a messy list right there, but just to get some of them out of the way to give you an idea of a few of them. You can see on the slide there that like game design, if you take game design and you pass that class, you can actually earn in game design a credit of fine art or a credit of third year math. If you take agriculture mechanics, you can get a CTE credit, or you could choose to have that credit count for geometry or a third year math. Medical interventions, you can take that CTE credit, or you can have that credit equal a lab science or a math science. And then our careers in education class, again, that can be a CTE credit or an elective credit, or you can have that count as your 11th or 12th grade English credit. So again, going back to those pathways and those career clusters, this is just a great opportunity for a student to identify an area that they're passionate about, interested in, and it potentially gives them an opportunity to stay within a pathway to get some of their core content areas covered. Just wanted to mention real quick that CTE can be found throughout our strategic plan, so we're really proud of the work that we do within our strategic plan. Goal 1 in our early childhood, we have our GRADS program. That stands for Graduation Reality and Dual Role Skills. So it's really, as many of you all know, about focusing on our early childhood education, on our teen parents in our district. Goal 2, we have our CTSO programs really support that. So CTSO stands for Career and Technical Student Organizations. Those are organizations that students engage in beyond the classroom, so a lot of times outside of the classroom. And so that's just a way that school becomes personal and intentional, and kids can engage in their learning kind of beyond the high school classroom. We really love obviously goal 3, because this is where our curriculum is really connected and rigorous and keeps kids on that personal roadmap to where they want to go in life. 4 is our bilingual and biliterate. We have CTE ASL classes, so students can get their world language credits met through our ASL program. So that's a growing program. It's a relatively new program. I think this might be its second year, or maybe possibly third year in development. So it's something that we're growing. And then obviously goal number 5, just connecting purposeful pathways for students as they seek their high school and beyond plan. We're also very proud to be part of our teaching and learning department, and we support the 3 levers of our teaching and learning department. So a lot of times CTE teachers have a hard time finding their place and space in a PLC conversation. If you're the ag mechanics teacher or the robotics teacher or the careers and education teacher, you're one person in that school. And so getting together with the department isn't a possibility. So we have provided some tools and support and some training for some of our CTE teachers to find areas to focus on together, to really come together around 21st century skills, about student growth, communication, critical thinking, things like that, where our teachers can really kind of support each other in supporting student learning as a PLC. We also are supportive of our mentoring, induction, mentoring, and coaching. So in our staffing model for the CT department, we have some TOSAs, so teachers on special assignment, and one of their big roles is to connect with our teachers, especially our new teachers, and make sure that we're helping them and supporting them with curriculum development or instructional strategies. One of the unique things about CTE is that we can have professionals come from industry and earn a conditional certificate to teach. And so they might know a lot about nursing, but they really have never taught a room full of 32 teenagers. So even just logging onto Skyward or doing a lesson plan or assessments, it's challenging. So our TOSAs come alongside them and meet with them regularly to support the craft and the skill of teaching. The other thing we support is obviously our principal supervision. Just largely my role is come alongside our principals as they just handle all that is involved in running and operating a school and all the master schedule opportunities, and just helping them understand equivalencies and pathways and high school and beyond plan requirements, and just helping them build their master schedule with intention and developing those pathways for our students. And it's a challenge. So to wrap up today, just wanted to leave you some quick statistics. CTE, like I mentioned, is extremely healthy in Yakima. So the number of students taking CTE courses continues to grow, even over the last 5 years, even through our pandemic times. We're slightly down in our middle school programs, but we're up significantly or considerably in our high school programs. So we're continuing to focus on that. Our CTE office, just wanted to give you a real quick picture of who is supported by CTE. So we have a small central office team. Myself as the director. We have 3 classified office secretaries who handle travel and certifications and purchasing for all the equipment for CTE. And then we have our TOSAs that we mentioned earlier. CTE Funds also supports 53 high school teachers, 13 middle school teachers. 18 of those 66 teachers are conditionally certified. Like I mentioned before, they're out of industry or they're out of another teaching discipline, and they're CTE teachers. So we're supporting them through that certification process. Our funding also supports in part 2 assistant principals in our district and 5 counseling staff. And then we have a career and college readiness specialist in each one of our high schools. So Davis, Eisenhower, and Stanton. And their goal is really to come alongside their admin team, their counseling team, and their students to work students through those high school and beyond plans, those college connections, FAFSA, scholarships, college applications, all the things that they have to think about. Our CTE funding is also healthy. So we're up about 20% in funding. So this year we roughly support our district with a little over $11 million in funding. A major contributor to our funding is the Perkins. So that's not not the restaurant or the scholarship application that we know about, but the Carl Perkins is a federal funding source for CTE programs, and we currently have about $190,000 coming from Perkins. Perkins is also a large accountability measure, so we have every year we have to write specific goals, 4-year plans. We have to do mid-year check-ins for Perkins, and that just kind of keeps us focused on, spending our money in the right ways and developing our programs in the right direction. You might recognize this picture here, and this is our graduation requirements. So this is the 24 credits the students, high school students, need to graduate. As you can see, by the chart there, that CTE is part of that graduation requirement. So students, as part of the 24 credit plan, must earn 1 CTE credit. But the great news story in Yakima, because of all those equivalencies and investments we've made, you can earn a content area credit in every area necessary to graduate from high school in Yakima. And that's unique. That's not everywhere. So that's just a really great news story that our team has worked hard over the years to make sure that we are articulating opportunities in English and math and science and social studies and all the areas to where students, if they're on a particular pathway, they can take classes of special interest that meet those graduation requirements. Some other fun ways that we support our students in CTE is while students are in those classes and in those courses earning credit, we also supported this last year 187 students earning Microsoft exam certification. So in Word and PowerPoint and Excel, 172 CTE teachers got their food handlers permit. So it's a great way to support their in-class learning, but also they were able to, I'm sure, take those out after school and to part-time jobs in the community. 158 of our students were able to get first aid and CPR certified, and again, taking that out into the community. And 158 students passed a nationally recognized industry precision exam, so very specific and rigorous exams on CAD and mechanical drafting and design and food nutrition and early childhood education. So just really great recognitions and certifications that our students are able to then put on resumes and help them be set apart from maybe other candidates in jobs or college opportunities that they're applying for. We also support worksite learning. So work-based learning and worksite learning is a big initiative. It's an increasing initiative in our state. It's a high focus of our state superintendent is increase these opportunities for students for worksite learning credits and opportunities. So we have staff in every one of our high schools that specifically support students in after-school, off-campus employment opportunities. The pictures you see there are some of our students receiving special education services. They work with one of our teachers who's both special education certified and CTE certified, and so she takes those students each week out into the community, and they work in different job sites and learning different job readiness skills. Other celebrations for CTE is our students in those CTSO organizations, those after-school programs that students get connected to, they're able to compete in the state and they're able to compete nationally. So this last year we had students compete in 4 state competitions. We had 32 different program areas compete. 20 of our Yakima students placed first in the state, and 68 of our students placed 2nd through 8th. A real fun opportunity, especially after none of us went anywhere for so many years for COVID, is that we were able to send 27 students to national competitions this last summer. So we had students from Yakima traveling to Dallas and Atlanta and San Diego and Nashville. And just a great opportunity for them to travel and experience and to compete and represent their school and our community. We had a unique privilege this year to see one of our students, our Davis students, Peter Whitney. He was elected to the state TSA treasurer position. So he's been fulfilling that position. And in fact, it's either coming up or he just got back from representing that position and us in Olympia recently. We also were at the fair this year. You might have seen us. So we had all of our CT equipment and 3D printers and the animage table and all kinds of fun little rockets and things at the fair. And so just spreading the word and the awareness about all the great CT programs here in Yakima. It was fun. Couple of celebrations, pictures that show you. These were some of our Davis students that recently traveled over the west side for a DECA competition. So they were just excited to get dressed up and compete together as a team. And DECA is a relatively new, it's kind of brought back after it's been away for a little bit. They were brought back recently. So the students went over there and were able to compete. And as you can see, got an award. So they were pretty excited about that. Some other fun celebrations that you might recognize. Suzanne Walker and Roderick Griggs are two of our agriculture teachers from Eisenhower. So they get really excited about kids working in the greenhouse and working with foods and teaching about food science. And kids learn everything from pastas and pastries to canning and all the sciences that go in there. Suzanne Walker, she's started using a digital portfolio tool called Bulb, and so kids make their foods, they do their presentations, and they learn about the science, and they can actually record those in an online portfolio. Sports medicine is really a popular program in our school district, and so as you can see here, students from all of our high schools get together and they can learn things like taping techniques and taking vital signs and doing CPR and learning how to do IVs and all things. They can even learn technology like the atomage table, but then there's even an opportunity for them to take pig's feet and learn suturing, which sounds really gross, and I'm sure it smells even worse. But that's just a great hands-on way for them to learn those readiness skills. So our next steps for CTE, in addition to doing all of those things and keep doing them and doing them better, we're really hoping to focus on a few things in the upcoming year. We have a new classroom in the new Innovation Center, and we're hoping to use that classroom to offer some opportunities for students who might not go to the career centers at Davis or Eisenhower. So maybe those are Stanton students, our YOL students, our upcoming homeschool family partnership students, the resource center for the students to come there and have some extended hours to where they can look for job opportunities, college and career opportunities, food handlers cards, CPR testing, all the things. We'd like to keep increasing our pathways for our agriculture and our careers and education programs. Those are two emerging programs that are important in our community. We'd like to increase our opportunities for middle school students and middle school classes and for CTE. We want to dive more into Core Plus. So we have a Core Plus mechanics program at Eisenhower. So this next year, we're hoping to launch a Core Plus construction program at Davis. And so Core Plus in itself is a unique graduation pathway. We'd like to increase our opportunities in our elementary schools to provide our careers and education students lab opportunities to get into a real classroom with a real teacher. And I saw a great email just today about several of our students who are getting into one of our elementary schools and just having a great time interacting with a teacher, learning from the teacher, learning with the students. And then, as always, we just need to do a better job and do a great job at just marketing the opportunities for our CT students. And that's my fire hose presentation. Sorry. So there will be a quiz. So any questions?
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from members of the board?
Byron, thank you for the presentation. It's packed full of information. And if you said this, I apologize, but do the CTE programs in the middle and high schools, are they linked to courses at YV Tech? in many cases?
So I don't think they're linked. So the way you can explain it, so most of our high school courses are what they call exploratory courses. So they're an entry level course per se, for students to explore different options. YV Tech, they're there for a 3-hour block. So it's what they call as a preparatory program. So it's kind of a level up. So they're definitely feeder opportunities for them to get experiences in our high schools. And if they really love that, to then take a bigger, deeper dive into a YV Tech course, because it's a half of their school day. So either come all afternoon or all morning. And then all of those courses at YV Tech lead to industry certifications, apprenticeship opportunities, college credits, things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate that we have developed all of these pathways to really honor our students in the way they learn and the different kinds of intellects they might have. So I really appreciate that. Just have a couple questions. What program or career pathway or cluster is most popular? Do you see one specific area that kind of rises to the top in terms of interest from students?
Well, I think so. We have probably the most interest in some of our health careers classes and our business classes. So those tend to do really well. They're really popular. We do have a lot of interest in our agriculture programs, our manufacturing and agriculture program, and that's why we're really trying to bolster those up and provide more equipment. And we've just invested a couple $100,000 in state-of-the-art CNC laser machines and things that students could walk into a place of industry, and if they knew how to operate that, it would just be hands down farther than many other possible applicants. So it's an area of growth for us, is just to really increase our manufacturing, our agriculture, our careers and education programs. But I would say, from my limited experience, only been here a couple years, we have just a really strong business and healthcare program in Yakima.
And then your slide that showed the list of graduation requirements and the different expectations there. You said something on slide 18, CTE and graduation requirements. You said that there is a CTE course equivalent for each of those areas. And so I just wanted to understand that a little bit more. So does that mean that a student could take CTE courses to meet all of their high school requirements?
So it would be a challenge for them, for one student to do a CTE course for all of them. It's not impossible. But going back to that equivalency slide that had all those different courses that could equal a math credit, English credit. So our team has worked really hard to provide some opportunity within our 24 credits for there to be a class that offers English credit and a class that offers math credit. So it would be, I haven't mapped it out whether one student could do a whole pathway of CTE, but it's, as we grow the program, that would be ideal. It would be ideal to have many different pathways that a CTE course would satisfy all 24 requirements.
Were you talking about the pathway? I think it's 2 more slides up. Was this the slide you were talking about?
No, it's
okay.
The equivalency.
It was just
Oh,
that
got
one,
it.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Ryan, did you have any questions or comments? Okay. Well, again, I'd like to thank you. What a comprehensive presentation. I was a former person who shepherded high school students through graduation. I was thrilled to see the number of equivalencies that are now available to give students options to either retrieve credits or kids that just don't fit in a kind of an academic setting as well, but can do it in a more practical setting. It's exciting to see that. I had a couple questions. When you're working with middle and high school students on developing their career pathways, who facilitates that process at those levels?
So mostly during advisory time. So again, at the high schools, we have those career and college readiness specialists that really can kind of dig in. They help develop lessons for the teachers. Our middle schools have different levels of advisory opportunities for students. Zello has these little lessons, these little, anywhere from 15 to 20-minute lessons that students can do a lesson, and it steers them towards an exploration of different things.
Okay, and then once a student develops a plan, where does that plan reside? Does it reside in a file somewhere? Is it used continuously in their course planning, or who sort of facilitates that process for those kids?
That's what's really great about Zello. So Zello follows them, and Zello has we've designated a kind of a portfolio of modules or lessons that students need to work through. And so the state has a rather boring checklist of you got to do this, and this, right? So Zello leads students through interactive lessons and experiences and explorations that when they complete all of those lessons within that online tool, it checks all of those requirements for the state high school and beyond plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other final comments or questions? Thanks so much for your presentation.
It was a privilege. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have reports from members of the board. Martha, did you have a legislative report you wanted to update us with?
You may have seen this weekend that I sent out a week 5 update from the legislature. This is based on information that came from the State School Directors Association Strategic Advocacy Group. They are shepherding several key initiatives through the legislature and working with other organizations, and they had several questions that they were seeking information from local school districts about. One is on mandatory recess. There's a House bill and a Senate bill on this. Started out as a 45-minute per day mandatory recess, and it was amended down to 30 minutes per day. But they're wondering how much recess do we currently have for elementary schools, and how are those recesses funded? What additional funding would you need in order to meet the 30-minute minimum requirement for daily recess? And what kind of funding would be specifically used, whether it would be, I don't know, funding for parapros through basic ed funding sources and such like that. The next one is zero emission school buses. And there are some districts in the state that already have a few zero emission school buses. The legislation also does focus a little bit on propane fueled buses, and I know we have a few propane fueled buses. So their questions on that are, have we purchased any zero emission school buses, and if so, how many, and what % of the fleet is that? How long would you predict you would need to fully replace your fleet with zero emission buses? And what would it take to replace the fleet by 2035, which is the date of required implementation called for in the legislation? So, it does. Of course, there isn't any funding in this legislation for these zero emission buses, and most of the feedback that we're getting is, without additional funding, it just couldn't happen. So we'll take that to the legislature and see what they have to say about it. And then there are 2 bills on school library and technology programs. And they had several questions about if you have, do you fully staff your libraries every day? And what type of staff do you have in your libraries? How are the libraries funded? Questions like that. So those are bills that are coming up for hearing this week, which is why they're asking those questions. And then there is a House Bill 1436, which is a special education bill that's coming up for a hearing this week. It is provides for more comprehensive increase in funding than the state is providing currently. And then the last one is that pesky prejudgment interest that I've talked to you about before, that would really could cause a lot of problems for school districts. They tried to pass an amendment to it to exempt public entities from that bill, but the amendment failed. So currently it still includes public entities being required to comply with this. There is a hearing tomorrow in Ways and Means at 4 o'clock on this. So I don't know if there's any interest on the part of the district to either log in and register whether you're pro or con, or in fact sign up for testimony. I don't know that you'd get an awful lot of time, but such is the way of Olympia these days. So those are a couple areas of specific requests and interests from WASDA for information from districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for?
Just kind of a follow-up question. Do we have any elementary schools that don't currently have 30 minutes of recess per day?
The short answer is no. We're in full compliance and beyond that. Per our collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union, we have a 15-minute morning recess and 15-minute afternoon recess. In addition to that, all of our elementaries have a minimum of 10-minute recess. It's attached to lunch. And many of our buildings offer one more 15-minute recess attached to a special that's typically used for providing some instruction in social emotional learning, how to play different games outside. We even have at Roosevelt down the street where the paras read a book. They do read aloud outside on the lawn when the weather is nice. So our schools have a significant amount of time that students are outdoors and getting exercise.
Dr. Rodriguez, could you share our contact hours at the elementary level?
I don't want to, but I would be happy to. Based on our current agreements, at the elementary level, our teachers spend 22 hours, no more than 22 hours in direct service to our students due to all of the recesses, the meal breaks, the before and after school time that's protected, and mandatory planning time. Mm-hmm. And that would be for our classroom teachers as well as for our specialists such as librarians.
Mm-hmm. That's per week, yeah. Okay, any other questions, reports? I have a couple of things that came up last meeting when we were struggling our way through the policy review and renewal. I found myself wanting some kind of protocol or template to get us through that a little more efficiently. So one of the things that I have proposed, now I just lost my, when we do a Survey Monkey on our compliance with policies, that if we could put in an automatic checkbox, and Barb and I have kind of worked on that a little bit already, if you comment that an item is partially or not compliant, it immediately comes to a comment box that says, what action would you need to see either on the part of a board member or the superintendent in order to bring us into compliance? So be specific. What action would you need to see for us to be compliant? And then it's a comment right there that just automatically pops up. The second part of that survey is when you're requesting a change in the wording of a policy, again, a similar box comes up in which you can type your recommendation for the wording change. You have, according to, I believe our policy, you have 30 days. If you're requesting a change in a policy, you can kind of think about it for 30 days. But it's up to the person that requesting a change in policy wording to submit a suggestion for an alteration in that wording. And so then once we have that, then it's easy to go through and just say, if we want to change in the wording or not, then we can have a motion. We can move to do that and vote on it, whether we want to keep the wording the same in the policy or whether we want to change it. But it just kind of facilitates taking some action rather than dwelling on it for a long time or having it get lost in the history, because I get lost in that when I'm scrolling through all those pages. So I think that might help us be a little more efficient there. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is I forgot to mention last time I was invited to join our superintendent at Rotary, and we had student voice at Rotary, and we had 2 students I think you've become quite familiar with now, Ezra and Luana, and they just were stellar. You know, they're just so comfortable with public speaking. They're great representatives of the district, and so they presented at Rotary and just did a wonderful job representing our district. And they presented a draft of their student voice policy, so which we haven't seen yet, but they're working on it. So that's all I have. Any other comments or suggestions from members of the board?
I have a question going back to the recess question. Jenny, you'd mentioned that at elementary school, the contact time that teachers have with students is, I think you said 4 hours or 22 hours a week. So is that 4 hours and like 20 minutes a day? That's fine. So the 22 hours a week, is that low? Is that high when you look at, like, is there data out there that indicates the standard number of contact hours per week at the elementary level?
It varies from district to district depending on what's in place. In my opinion, it's low for direct instruction time with the classroom teacher, who's the one that honestly knows the students best and is most responsible for their learning. Considering that our teachers are on a 37.5-hour work week, 22 hours seems low to me. But we haven't done a deep dive across other districts to see what that looks like. So I'm familiar with the folks that I've worked with and around regionally, but I couldn't tell you whether that's on par, for example, on the west side of the state.
And with the districts that you work with, is that number low, what you know about? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or from members of the board? Okay, Dr. Green, superintendent's update.
Thank you, President Walker. Was there any action or anything around the Survey Monkey that was just kind of an informal share with the rest of the board? I'm just make sure that you're satisfied with.
I think you will see an updated Survey Monkey when the next round comes through. I'm not sure if
so that will be implemented then.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need a motion to implement that. I think it's just we can do that by consensus. Okay. If we don't like that thing, we can give feedback and say,
perfect.
Not working for me. Let's do something different. But
all right,
I think it will help all of us.
Sorry, can I ask one more question about that? And so the policy change of the wording of a policy, writing our suggested new policy language, that makes sense to me. But I assume that we still have the standing policy that we could make a change to a policy at any time, even outside of this process.
Yeah,
right?
that's still a standing policy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'll go forward with the superintendent update. I have several items. I'll try to go through these rather quickly. First and foremost, one of the most important things is to actually be in the building, seeing programs, hearing feedback from our constituents, our students, observing the instruction that's happening, and of course, touching base with our principals and making sure that we are focused on instructional leadership. Along those lines, I was able, since our last visit, to be in 7 schools. Our virtual K-8, both of the schools, the Lois Menard over at the online for the high school and Open Doors, as well as at the new Learning Center with the virtual K-8, as well as our 2 comprehensive high schools, Eisenhower and Davis, elementary Ridgeview, middle school Franklin, and then at MLK today was a very quick visit during their teacher time. I'd like to share something that I learned or that happened during that time for board edification, and I would share that at Ridgeview, at one of the elementaries, in hearkening back to our work around equity with WASDA and talking about belonging, there was a wonderful group of about 8 girls that Principal Jensen and I were able to talk with, and the conversation went down the road of belonging. And I simply asked the question, who is your, do you have somebody in the school in the form of an adult that you know cares about you, that you could go to? And I think the good learning there is obviously we have wonderful educators who are there for kids, and we had the majority, an overwhelming majority, identify right away. And the thing to bring to the attention is we can't always certainly assume that everybody's having the same experience. One of the girls out of the 8 did say, I don't. And so that opened up a wonderful conversation with the young lady and the principal and myself in talking with her about what that means. And I do and will follow up with Principal Jensen, but going back to those outcomes that were talked about in that WASDA training about belonging leading to engagement and therefore achievement is something always to keep in mind. And we're looking more and more, Dr. Darling and I have met with some survey opportunities in making these site visits and gauging some questions in a formative assessment around what our students are experiencing around the social emotional realm as well as the academic realm and belonging. So I wanted to share that piece along with just a quick recognition of just the wonderful work that our principals do also. And I was at a middle school, and in this instance, I was able to revert back to my principal role. There was a parental issue that had happened, a misstep or a miscue, if you will, with an employee and a student, and the parents were there, and it just so happened that I was at the school. Out of all the schools that I was in, the parents were calling to talk to the superintendent, and the superintendent was in the building, so I was able to engage in that manner and work with the family and the principal and the teacher, and it was just a reminder of just how nobody's perfect, and yet if we work together in a process without getting into details, that everybody can leave happy and grow in interactions and communication. And I think it's just important to recognize that we are in a business where we deal with human capital, and that's sometimes challenging as everybody's at different levels, both internally and externally. But it really does highlight the willingness of our teaching staff to reach out and to connect and communicate with our parents as well as our principals in navigating situations that sometimes we don't get to hear about or we're not reminded about. So very excited about those continuing ongoing site visitations. And again, you're always invited to join me in any of those. And thank you, Director Walker. I know you're always ready to go and see what's happening in our buildings. Continuing, I know that you received an invitation from one of our principals to a family STEAM night. This was at Gilbert, and we will make sure that we get you those invitations in a different form. But since it was made public to all of our board members, I just wanted to make sure that whether you do or do not have the ability to attend, so we don't have any conflict if that does happen. So it's Family STEAM Night at Gilbert, which is Thursday, February 16th. So it's next Thursday from 5:30 to 6. And I would just ask if anybody is planning to attend that. No. Okay, wonderful. I will convey that we would love to, and we appreciate what's happening with those family nights, and appreciate you telling me that right now so that we can move on. I have asked our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Ms. Stacy Locke, to share some information about a SMILE survey with you. I believe it's also located in your board docs if you wanted to access that flyer. Assistant Superintendent Locke.
Thank you, Superintendent Green. Good evening, Board. So the SMILE survey comes out about once every 5 years, and it's funded through the State Department of Education, State Department of Health. Sorry, we've been talking about education for a while. State Department of Health in partnership with a company called Acora. And they selected 40 schools throughout the state, and Yakima is a recipient of 4 schools, which they will visit: Roosevelt, Adams, Ridgeview, and Martin Luther King. And they will go in and look at approximately 3 classrooms or 60 students in the 2nd grade and 60 students in the 3rd grade. The screenings only take a couple minutes, which is why they call it the SMILE survey. They're not using x-rays or any instruments. They're simply asking them to smile and open up their mouth and take a look. And each student, regardless of whether they get screened or not, will get a toothbrush and stickers. And what they're doing is they're using the data, they're collecting it so that it can inform policy and program at local and state levels. And it doesn't replace any program that's currently out there. I know we do a lot of work with Farm Workers Clinic around dental visits, but again, it's a way to kind of get a handle on what dental care looks like for our children, because it does impact their learning in the school system. Any questions I could answer?
Stacy, did you say when this will happen? Do we know?
You know what? I just went blank on that. Blank. I'll tell you what, before school's out.
Okay.
Before school's out. But it's set up, I can tell you that it's set up so that it's not a disruption to class. So it takes about a minute and a half each student, and then they're back in their seats. They don't pull them all out of class, line them up, anything like that. So it's in conjunction with the instruction going on. So it should be minimal disruption in nature. But no, I don't know exactly when it's happening. But I'll look it up. I'll get it to you, Martha.
Thank you.
I probably have every answer but that one.
All right, any follow-up questions for Assistant Superintendent Locke? Okay, hearing none, I will move on. We did have some board retreat survey monkey results around Aaron Jones. You may remember that I reached out and asked if that was something that was productive, if it was something that we would consider bringing back and working potentially with Tricia Lubach out of WASDA with potentially another module, or moving forward with Aaron Jones as the sole consultant in that area. I did have 3 responses, so they were all affirmative that this was something very valuable. So I am planning on moving forward. So if you're one of the 3 that did not, please let us know if that's something that is, that you're in opposition to. Otherwise, I'll work with President Walker to make arrangements for that in the future. Next item is that during the critical stress debrief that I had shared with the board, there were a couple of things that were mentioned, and I brought this to your attention earlier, but I want to make sure that we're really clear and that I'm bringing it up more than once before we move forward. And that was the 2 suggestions, one around engaging with the board and superintendent and Mary Alice Uschel in bringing that collaboration together. We have moved forward, and that contract is ready to be signed and having that work go forward. So she's very excited to work with us, and I can tell you that it's something that I think will be very good for the board and for the district moving forward. So I wanted to let you know about that. Go ahead. You have a question?
Can you remind me what that's about?
Absolutely. That was what I had shared is that we are looking at board and superintendent systems development and how we can really continue to facilitate the work of the board together and with the board and superintendent and team. And we were looking at Mary Alice Uschel, who has a very deep knowledge of the superintendency in the state, has served as the Chief of Staff for Governor Inslee, and all of her credentials are just incredible. Seeking a knowledgeable, really third-party analysis and recommendations for improvement and alignment of our systems. So I can go into more detail if you'd like, or share that offline. Perfect. The second part of that, and this is really what I'm kind of seeking tonight, was the opportunity to decouple the 5 goals that are found within the ENDS report and spread those 5 presentations out during the year, so it would align more with the release of the data during the year, instead of having that massive collective ENDS report, which you will again see this evening with the requested data. But the thinking there is, of course, to align it, as I said, with the release of the information. And then what it would do is we would have these 5 separate presentations around the community commitments, and then they would be compiled together for the ENDS report in January for approval of the board. And that would allow for a deeper analysis of the board of each of those community commitments, and maybe more palatable, and really dive deeper into what is within those 5 commitments. If everything's okay, we'll move forward, and I'll make those arrangements with President Walker unless there are any concerns.
And was this the idea where a board member would take one topic? This is different.
No, this was strictly around the ENDS report and presenting to the board instead of presenting, and you'll see that tonight. We're going to do the full presentation. What it would mean is we would have those 5 different presentations, smaller presentations, but maybe more in depth. And then we would bring it together, and it would be a much more superficial presentation in January, saying, as you remember, on these months, we referenced all, we had a share out on goal number 1, goal number 2, and this is the compilation to meet the requirements of the approval of the ENDS report. Okay. Are you okay with that moving forward? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. So I will move forward with that and work in conjunction with President Walker. Next item is I had in late January mentioned that it was a perfect time to recommit to the one-on-one meetings, or at least analyze what your schedule is moving forward and what you would like. I believe that we have had, at this point, in reaching out via email, there have been 2 responses. So this is just a reminder that if you have not responded, Barb will reach out again just to make sure that you want to meet with me. And if you don't want to meet with me, I will not take it personally, but I certainly want to give you that option. If you want to meet frequently, it can be every week, every other week, every month. It does vary from individual, and it varies from location. So from home to here to school, we'll make it work. But I asked for daily, and she said I couldn't do it. Yeah, I know. That has been done before. Let me just tell you. Don't tease about that. You will find yourself in a daily meeting. All right, and then the last item, I believe, or nope, penultimate item, it looks like, was a board retreat. We do have one scheduled for March 13th that's on the calendar, and I believe it was either the last meeting or a couple of weeks ago, a comment was made that we didn't have another board retreat until, I believe it was August, but there is one on March 13th, so I certainly wanted to draw the board's attention to that date. Last item is that we have the SIP school improvement plans that are prepared and ready to come before the board at our next meeting. So this evening, late this evening, or after this session, you will receive an email from Barb with the school improvement plans and links by site. So if you so desired, you could go in and see what is happening in each of the buildings as far as the goals and metrics that are being used, and all of the information contained within the SIP for each site, and delve into that as much as you would like. Are we okay? Then I want to make sure that, today is a Monday. Our next meeting is, I believe, next Monday, or no, Tuesday. I think we're meeting on Valentine's Day.
How special.
Special date here for all of us, yeah. So it's a little over a week, and is that time enough for you to take a look at those, at least a school improvement plan or 2, to gauge and bring any question forward?
I would think that it would be, especially in light of the fact that we're required to review those and sign off on them, so.
Yeah. It is a requirement, and if you're going to read every single one of those, it's going to be some heavy reading over the course of probably 6 months. But if you wanted to go in and take a look at a school or two and kind of see how the template works and any specific questions about any component, we'd be happy to respond next week when we bring it forward. Dr. Rodriguez, do you have any follow-up, or are you okay?
I'm good. I just was going to share with the board that we'll also have a presentation for you on the school improvement process and what the requirements are at the state level. There seemed to be some interest when I brought you last year, so I thought it might be helpful just from a board education standpoint. So we'll have that for you next week too.
Thank you for that. All right. And with that, if there are no questions for follow-up, I'll defer back to our board president. Oh, one moment.
I have the smile answer for you. Actually, there isn't a date set, which is probably why I didn't see one. So it's now tasked upon the principals to go ahead and contact the Department of Health and make arrangements for when it would work best at their particular schools. So
Thank you, Stacy.
you're more than welcome.
Okay, thank you. And now we will have our updated Global Ends report. Dr. Rodriguez. Oh, I skipped. I was so eager to see that report, I skipped past the first opportunity for public comment. And I do believe we have one commenter this evening, and it's on agenda items. And is she joining us virtually? And in order to speed things up, we have dispensed with me reading the protocols for public comment, and instead what we're doing now is we're presenting the protocols to a commenter, and they simply read them and acknowledge that they've read them so we can move forward. So okay, we will have Bunker Frank presenting on calendar.
Is it logged out now? Okay, we're going to start you fresh on your 3 minutes right now.
Thank you. Folks, I'm Phyllis Bunker Frank, 12-year school board member many years ago, but extensive personal background and commitment to the most efficient, effective, and fair use of the 180 days in the school calendar year, and one that helps maintain continuous connected growth and continuous connected partnership with parents, and also allows our very fine teachers who by October are complaining and concerned about burnout. And this is documented in the literature, and I'll send you a recent article that appeared in a reputable journal about teacher burnout in October. And that was in the topic. I see that the recommendation is for option C. I looked at all your choices. And it seems that option C still has 10 to 11 weeks of summer break. You do have 4 weeks of summer school, which is rare to see summer school. And I have mentioned that in the past on the calendar. I'm glad that it's there for parents to see and teachers to recognize. But we also know that it's hard to get teachers to, it's a challenge, I should say, for teachers to see themselves teaching in summer school at the maybe level that we need after they have had such an intensive 9.5 months of work. Also, students for consistent attendances, also a challenge after having a consistent 9 months of not a lot of breaks. I see you have one intercession in February of 5 days. I don't know what's going to happen there. All of this is just to say that from my analysis and work and what I've written, this is still not an instructional calendar year. We do not have time for catch up, keep up, remediation and or intervention at a timely place. You still have the end of the semester, 2 weeks into January, when just a little more dialogue, processing, and understanding with good graphics in front of folks could lead to starting a calendar more like the most long-lasting calendars and in existence, as well as many of the new ones that are emerging. And I've sent you those before. I will do it again. I don't have a timer, an egg timer here to tell 3 months, but I know that Dr. Rodriguez, I appreciate whatever work went into generating these calendars, but they just plan for loss and disconnect and not timely intervention of service from my perspective. And board members, I know several of you have spoken out. I know that you will likely pass on this calendar. It's the way things go. But I
That's
hope
3 minutes.
Can
Thank
still
you, Bunker.
consider whether you want to add comment. Yes, I'm through. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bunker. As you know, we don't respond at this time, but we will have a response for you prepared within the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much for your interest and continued commitment to education in Yakima and around the state. And now we have Dr. Rodriguez with our Global Ends Report, Part 2, or 2.0.
Thank you, Board President Walker, members of the board. It's my pleasure to share with you the updated ends report. I believe this was shared with you previously, so I'm going to, you're not shushing me. Okay. I was like, oh, I will hold. Thank you. I got distracted out of my peripheral vision. Okay, so I'm gonna go fairly quickly. If there's something in particular that you would like me to stop at, please let me know. But I just wanted to acclimate you to what we added since the original presentation. And in a moment, I'll speak very slowly, we will have the presentation up there because it's too small for me to see on my screen. It's linked in the agenda. This is not it. So while we're getting that set up, just to acclimate you, we did report initially back in November on the 5 strategic goals, which is what is in our ends policy as a board, that those are the 5 goals that we're really focused on. So that was initial data that we provided to you really in aggregate. At your request, we've added disaggregated data around each of those 5 goals. Each slide that you see that has a teal border or a square box, a rectangular box around it, those are the slides that have been added. So that way you can very clearly tell what's different from the first time that I presented this to you. We've also added really subheader slides that call out for you what is the data that's been included, how we are measuring progress, and then it alerts you to which slides include that data. Thank you so much. So here you, again is policy 1000.1.0. It is directly tied to our district strategic improvement plan. Goal 1, as you are very familiar, is around the early years and developing a strong foundation for our students. We focus primarily around our student readiness for kindergarten and looking at our incoming kinders and our preschool students. But it's important to note that early learning is really birth through 3rd grade. And so we're continuing to develop our understanding of early learning and how to best serve our students in preparing them in both literacy and numeracy to ensure their future success. This, as I mentioned, is our subheader slides that just lay out for you what our interpretation of the statement is. I think what's probably just most important for you to note is when we say all students, we mean all. All students means all students, no exceptions. When we're talking about and it's listed here in the statement already, but social emotional skills, academic curiosity, cognitive development, really what we're talking about is the TS Gold assessment, which is what we use as our WA Kids assessment. It's required by our state. We utilize that at our preschool and for our incoming kindergartners. It measures readiness in 6 domains: cognitive, language, literacy, math, physical, and social emotional learning. We have, as you know, just really coming out of a 2+ year pandemic. Everything to some degree has been somewhat on hold as everyone has weathered that situation. And so I've put here determination of making progress. But as you've heard from some of our other teaching and learning staff, really this is the new baseline. This year is really our new baseline for progress for students. The evidence that is included is our benchmark progress as well as WA Kids data slides. This is the slide I brought to you in November. So our baseline out of our district strategic plan is 4 out of every 20 students, or 20%, met the criteria for kindergarten readiness. I think it's important for you to know what percentage of our students are ready in the different domains because it does vary. Often I hear the story that our students in Yakima are unprepared and come to school not knowing how to do anything, and that is simply not true. Our students are intelligent and wonderful and gifted in their own right, and many of them do come prepared in many different areas. So I just think it's important to have that asset-based approach to especially our littlest learners. This is data that you can access at any time through the OSPI, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction School Report Card. That data is public. It's available for you as board members. It's also available to our staff, our families, and our community members. The data is often on a delay, so you're going to see that statement as we go through the slides. It's not live data when we're looking at OSPI for reporting. It's most often the year prior because it takes time for all the districts to send in data for them to make sure everything is accurate, compile it, visualize it, and put it on their website. So this is data from the 21-22 school year, so this would be last year's kindergartners or this year's 1st graders. So you just think we have to kind of think through that timing of that. So here you can again see this matches up with really what we reported to you.
May I make a comment, please?
Sure.
If you would go back one. I think that this is something that you really, I hope, would like to celebrate. Maybe not knowing the data ahead of time. When we look at all 6 indicators, as a district, we have hovered between 18 and 24%. So when you look at this information here, you'll see all of the information and the lowest being math at 37.1%. So you should notice that the collective level that is being reached in 21-22 is significant compared to where we were pre-strategic plan. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of work to do. There certainly is, but that is a high for probably a decade-long period of time, if not longer.
I think it's worth just adding again that the state often looks at only those students who meet the criteria in all 6 areas, and our kids are just like us. They all have their areas of achievement and giftedness, and this is a better picture of what our students are coming to us with when we look at each individual domain. You also can access, this is one of the ways that OSPI reports the data from an instructional standpoint, less helpful to me because I want to know which domain they were successful coming in versus necessarily the number of domains. But this is a way that OSPI reports it, so you can see what percentage of students, for example, so I'm on the upper left there of all students, 0 of 6 areas. I'm going to hope that says 16.2. I feel like I'm taking an eye test right now. 16.2%. Came in not ready in any of the areas. We had 19.5% ready in all of the areas. They then also disaggregate the data, so I've included it because I thought you would be interested in that. So I've broken it down as we go through all 5 goals between gender and also ethnicity, race, so you can see where that breaks out. Again, you do have access to this report, so I'm going to go quicker than it would take for you to read every item. Okay. They also break it down in terms of how prepared are students. So their level of readiness, how does it vary by area of development and learning? So when you look at this graphic, if we look at just, for example, the language, so all students in the language line, that orange portion, students are coming in demonstrating readiness of a 0 to 2-year-old. The yellow, they're at a 2-year-old level, the green at a 3-year-old level, the blue at a 4-year level, and the purple would be I'm ready for kindergarten or beyond. So that's, again, the percentage that are coming in ready. Again, you can see this data broken down by gender and also by our ethnicity and race reporting areas. This data is also available for you based on program enrollment. So we're able to see this data based on whether a student is designated for English language learner services, if they're designated as low income, if they're designated as homeless, or if they're designated as a student with disability. And you're going to see that again as we go through each of these. Goal 2, all students empowered, connected, supported, resilient, and engaged. Here is the interpretation. Again, all students means all students, no exceptions. Habits and behaviors of student voice, resilience, personal ownership, they really fall under this domain of social emotion and behavior. Regular attendance we're viewing as a personal ownership behavior. And just as a reminder, regular attendance is defined as 95% attendance or no more than 2 absences per month, which would calculate out to no more than 18 absences or 10% of a 180-day school year. That is the same regular attendance definition we use in our district as the state uses in their reporting. A safe, caring, supportive environment we've defined as one in which a student feels connected to at least one caring adult and to peers, and their specific Center for Educational Effectiveness survey data that is linked to that statement. And we're really using, again, OSPI's reporting data, which is, again, available at the state report card, as well as that CEE-EES data. So you're going to see the benchmark progress slide, which, again, was shared at the original November report, along with state attendance data and our local EES survey data. So this is, again, the OSPI reporting data. As always, it comes in on a lag by the time it's processed. So this is the data from last year. This isn't from fall of this year. This is part of why we've talked about changing up how we do these reports so we can bring it to you as soon as it's released in a more timely way. This is, again, for 2021, so it's even further back on the data from the state in this regard. It is available broken out by gender, by ethnicity and race, and by program and characteristic. What we would hope to see, of course, is 95% attendance across all areas. We are not there yet, as my growth mindset friends remind me. But what the other piece I would look at is like in the right-hand column where you see kind of that gold yellow bar, and then I'm not sure if that's black or gray or something, but we would want to see that those bars are the same length. That would indicate that whatever that characteristic is not predictive of students' ability to be at school regularly. And so when you see the different lengths between the gold bar and the black bar, that's showing us that there's a discrepancy, which is something that we should be paying attention to and thinking about. You can see that depending on the category, some have a greater discrepancy than others. So one that would be an area of focus for us, if you look at homeless students who are designated as homeless, 39.3% of them are able to attend regularly, where students who are not designated as homeless, 62.1% are able to attend regularly. So that's a significant difference there and something that would require intervention on our part as a district. This is just another way to visualize the data. What percentage of students had fewer than 2 absences per month on average by grade level? So I know we've talked about this before as a team about the difference between elementary age students versus middle school and high school or secondary students. And you could see that tracks to some degree when we look at full day kinder through 5th grade. We're anywhere from 63 to 70% having regular attendance. At middle school, it's 56 to 60. At high school, we're looking at 53 to 60. So you can see kind of those bands where we're having kind of a dip or a decrease in attendance as we go up in the grade levels. That's pretty common across districts in our state.
Quick question, the 2 absences per month, is that the 95%
It
attendance
is,
level?
yes,
Okay.
and it's a little bit funky, right? But 2 absences per month over a 9-month school year would be 18 absences. So out of 180 days, it's the 10%. Mm-hmm. Oh, that doesn't make sense then. It's 90%. So that's the state rate. Hopefully I did that math right.
That doesn't align with our district goal. This is the state.
It's higher. This is the state goal.
Requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And district goal is higher.
It is higher.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Just again, another way to visualize. And then this, you can see the breakout. This is over time as well. So it begins over there, 16, 17 on the far left up through 2021. And you can see it's been fairly flat, but obviously 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21 all impacted, or 19, 20, 20, 21 impacted by COVID. This slide is broken out by race and ethnicity. Very similar pattern where we saw an uptick, 1920, the attendance rules were changed quite a bit when we were fully remote. And then you can see as we're coming back, some impact there. In addition to that attendance data, as previously reported, we also utilize our Center for Educational Effectiveness survey data. And there are some specific survey items that are linked to this goal number 2. I feel safe at this school. In this school, there's at least one adult who knows and cares about me, and most students are respectful of others in this school. This is the data that was shared in November. And then we added for you some updated information. So we administer that survey in October. So once that is all compiled, CEE then releases that information back to us in early winter. This came back and was released to our principals right after winter break. So this is almost hot off the presses in terms of data, but you can see the survey item at the top. So this first one is I feel safe at school. You can see the percentages from blue to red. Blue is strongly agree. The kind of sky blue, medium blue is agree. The grayish blue in the middle is a neutral response. And then we have the orange disagree and the red strongly disagree is typically how those are rated. You can see this broken out again by ethnicity groups. So again, what we're looking for is we're looking for disproportionality. So if we see that 41% amongst all, we would hope to see a 41% slice all the way down across those groups. And you can see that that's not the case, which again gives us an indicator where we might want to focus our efforts.
And for purposes of tracking our goal of a 95%, oh, I just answered the question, agree or strongly agree. So on the chart, we'd be looking at the dark and the light blue colors combined.
Yes.
Okay.
We typically, if you were to work, and I know you guys have met with John Steech before, in fact, we had him at the last board retreat in January, they would look at those 2 colors on the far left as positive responses. They consider that gray area to really be the land of opportunity. Those are folks who've not made up their mind. And so to some degree in perceptual work, that's who you go after and try to impact a change in belief or mindset. The folks in the orange and red are often in a place where they're a bit more dug in and less likely to change their mind. We also have this disaggregated by gender. Again, we would hope to see straight down the line, but you can see that that is not the case there. And then again, disaggregated by program. So for our students who are designated for English learner services, our students designated for highly capable services, Section 504, which is a health accommodation plan, and then our students who receive special education services. The second survey item that is tied to goal number 2, in the school there's at least one adult who knows and cares about me. Again, these are data from this October, so this is going to be the most recent data in this report, again, just based on the timing of when it's received. This is disaggregated by ethnicity. We have it disaggregated by gender and also disaggregated by program. CEE does not break out for programs like designated as homeless, designated for foster care. So you can see the program services, it's a little bit different than when we look at the OSPI data. The categories aren't quite the same. And then the third one, most students are respectful of others at this school. Somewhat fascinating. Kids are more happy with adult behavior than they are with peer behavior. It's interesting, I think. Disaggregated by ethnicity, disaggregated by gender, and disaggregated by program. Which takes us to goal 3, equitable opportunity to achieve core mastery and critical thinking. I think of goal 3 often as kind of the teaching and learning goal. This is the one we spend a lot of our time on. Here is the recap for you. Again, all students means all students, no exceptions. When we say we want students to meet or exceed standards, we mean we want them to achieve a proficient level. It's a level 3, or sometimes the state sets a particular cut score, which might be in the 2 range or the 3 range. So whatever that is that's set, that's what we would want students to meet on the annual Smarter Balanced Assessment in the areas of English, language arts, and math. Student empowerment, creativity, levels of racial and social justice advocacy. We're not currently measuring those beyond any data sources that I'm already covering within this report. So primarily this goal is measured through SBA data. Slide 29 is the benchmark progress slide that I shared with you previously. And this one as well. Reminder that we did not have testing in 1920 due to the pandemic. So that year is missing out of this 5-year snapshot right down the middle of these scores. Again, there is a plethora of data available on the OSPI district report card. So you can get on there and take a look. This is from 21-22, so this would be last spring. You remember in our state that we did not administer under direction of our state superintendent any testing the year prior. So our kids had to test last fall and again last spring to count for the prior year and the current year. This year we'll be testing just in the spring, which I know our students appreciate not doing that twice in a year. This gives you all students and our proficiency rates. So again, these are students that score at a 3 or whatever the cut score is set for the year. You can see this broken out by gender. The alternate, if you're wondering about that, the WAAIM is an alternate assessment. It is for students in grades 3 through 11 who have significant cognitive disabilities, and it's only administered if it is called out as a particular piece of that student's individualized education plan or IEP. Otherwise, all students are expected to take the Smarter Balanced Assessment. We have the data broken out for you again by ethnicity. Again, what I would be looking for from a disproportionality lens is I'm looking to see that all the bars are the same length. When there's not, then we know that we have disproportionality in that category. And then here it is again broken out by the programs. This is one of the quickest ways when you're looking at disproportionality because you can see both halves of a particular group. So we can look at like our English language learners and our non-English language learners and how did they do on the exams. I would posit some of that is a testament that the exams are a test of language more than anything else. And then what percentage of students met grade level standards? This is by grade level. And again, you can see this in English language arts, mathematics, and in science. So you can see where our kids broke out grade level by grade level. Again, differences in the assessment, differences in our instruction, differences in student interest. There's a lot of factors at play, but it is interesting to note, right, as we look at language arts that we see a trend up over time, where when we look at math, we see a trend down. So again, as an instructional leader, that's a piece I would be curious about and be digging into. We also can take a look at this, and this is a little like goal 1 with kindergartners, where it was telling us, like, are they in the 0 to 2 range? Are they performing like a 3-year-old? This percentile, percent level, this is giving you a 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is an above grade level standard score, so that means the kid did awesome on the test. A 3 is typically proficient and on grade level. Level 2 is below that. Level 1 is significantly below grade level. So if you're wanting to know in general, we know what percentage of our students, quote unquote, passed the exam, but it is interesting to take a look at, well, how many were close, how many were way above, how many were well below, because that does influence and impact the types of interventions and extensions that we have to offer in our school programs. 3 is typically the cut score, but OSPI can set it at a specific score rate if they want to for passing the test, but this gives you the actual 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the score they get back, and a 3 would be considered on grade level or proficient.
How often does OSPI change the threshold?
When they want to. So not too often. They set it initially when the Smarter Balanced assessment came out, and then there were some adjustments that were made, I think, as they were getting kind of used to what does that data look like. It will be interesting to see if they make any different changes as we are coming out of kind of the COVID era, whether they might choose to do anything different with that. Yeah. Same data, broken out again by race ethnicity category. And again by program. Couple slides of that. Lots of data here. So I'm clicking through fairly quickly, but you have access if there's anything you'd like to follow up on. That brings us to goal number 4, bilingual, biliterate by graduation. Again, here is just the summary. All students means all, no exceptions. Preparation in 2 or more languages. We are really measuring this, as we shared previously, differently at different grade bands. So at the elementary level, we're looking at implementation of the dual language program. At middle school, we're looking at both enrollment and success in world language courses while a middle school student. And at the high school, we're looking at that attainment of seal of biliteracy prior to high school graduation. We don't currently measure cultural competence. That would be challenging, I think, for us to measure of our students. And the goal is assessed using district level data on course offerings, course enrollments, course grades, and of course the stamp assessment for the seal of biliteracy. This is the data I shared with you previously, and similar data that you also heard from Director Tally Garcia when she presented on our bilingual programs early this school year. We've added for you information on world language courses. There isn't particularly information to break out. I'm sure I could find a way to do it if you wanted, but when we look at elementary, it's just whether we have the program in place or not. So there's no additional slides at the elementary level. At the middle school, we started to look at world language course enrollment. So when you look at these, you have the ethnicity category down the left. What percentage of our 8th grade class as a whole as a district does the ethnicity make up? And then what percentage of those students enrolled in the course? And then of those that enrolled, what percentage successfully earned 1.0 world language credit? So that's how the numbers work, just to acclimate you to the model, and that's what it's going to look like as we go through goal 4 and goal 5. We also have this broken out by gender and by program. Super helpful data for our middle school principals and teachers as they think about recruitment efforts to be looking at this data. And then there is, again, some additional data at the high school level around seal of biliteracy. So again, our benchmark as of this year was about 4 out of 20. We had 21% this last school year that attained the seal of biliteracy prior to graduation. We have expanded our offerings of the seal of biliteracy for students, and I believe this is the first year we'll be offering it even for our 8th graders. It's going to be important to offer that at the 8th grade level and not wait for students to be at high school, because they have the opportunity to earn up to 4 high school credits in a world language based on their performance on that exam. So we want students and families to know if they've earned those credits prior to enrolling at the high school, because it could impact their course taking patterns. Additionally, as dual language as a model continues to roll up through our grade levels, those students will absolutely be ready to be successful on that exam by the 8th grade. Again, broke out by ethnicity, broke out by gender, and broke out by program. Just like the other bar graphs, we would be looking for like foster care and non-foster care to have the same percentage of enrollment and percentage of success, and you can see that is not yet the case. And that brings us to our last goal, persistence through graduation and beyond. Again, all students means all students, no exceptions. We want them all to graduate. Most importantly, we want graduation to mean something, that it is an attainment of that high school diploma, but also the skills, attributes, and mindsets to be successful in whatever they might pursue. On-time graduation is considered graduation by the conclusion of summer school in the student's senior or 4th year of high school. So if a student is close in June and doesn't quite make it and they can finish in summer school, that is still counted as an on-time graduation. Preparation for college, career, post-secondary experience is not currently measured beyond what is already included in here, but you did hear Executive Director Gerard talk today, like we have high school and beyond plans for every student that's actually required before they can graduate. So we do have those pieces in place. And this goal is used, we assess it using state graduation. So again, you're going to see the benchmark slide that I shared with you in November. The grayed out boxes, because we haven't had 5 years or 6 years yet, right? So those will get added as the years go by. And then we've added additional data through OSPI's reporting. It does take them more time maybe than we would think to fully tell us what the final graduation rate is from their perspective. But again, like the Goal 4 data, you could see the percentage of the class of 2022 by category, and then what percentage of those students graduated within that category. Broke out by ethnicity, by gender, and by program. The rest of the presentation is information that I shared with you last time, really just linking our teaching and learning strategies for high quality instruction and learning back to all of those goals. So last time I already shared with you how we are linking professional learning communities across the 5 goal areas, as well as induction, mentoring, and coaching, and principal supervision. But I'm happy to answer any questions on those as well. And that concludes our revised END report for this school year.
A question on the graduation rates. I'm looking at slide 58. I just want to make sure I'm reading the data correctly. So for migrant and non-migrant, migrant graduation rate is at 82.2%, and that's higher than the non-migrant graduation rate. Am I reading that correctly?
True fact. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the same with section 504. You said those were health accommodations.
They're typically health accommodations, yeah, health impairment. And I think what that indicates is that our migrant recruiters, our migrant graduation specialists, our counselors. I was going to give a shout out to Executive Director Mendez, who apparently snuck out during my presentation. Hector Mendez oversees our migrant program. Last year, Dr. Ellis oversaw our migrant program, and we have significantly increased the staff in that program to really ensure that we are supporting our migrant students and families, and that it is, I would say, close to impossible for them to slip through the cracks at this point. So I think that data point is a testament to that team's work.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, if I may, I always try to log into board docs over the weekend prior to a meeting to preview what's coming, and I get a little intimidated when I see a 64-page PowerPoint coming at me.
Sorry.
But you are able to break that down very well for us, so thank you. I know it takes some time, but I sincerely appreciate it. And I think the additional information is really helpful. My question, I guess, is one of my rhetorical questions for the board. You know, so many of the goals pertain to a 6-year plan that was created about 3 years ago. And I really don't know what the process looks like for measuring those goals as we go, or do we just not talk about it until 2026? I mean, we get reports, we see the updates, but as far as, you know, we had a huge number of people from the community weigh in on this. And I've read through the plan on a couple of occasions, and my question is really just, especially considering the upheaval that the world has gone through, at some point in time, do we sit back and as a board say, we need to readdress some of these goals to make sure we're being realistic? Or do we not have that mechanism in the plan as it was created 3 years ago?
May I? You said it was rhetorical, but now I'm going to answer. So I would hope that the board would look at it. The goal that was set was obviously pre-pandemic, and things changed, and goals are goals, and they need to be revised and looked at. I think the process was solid. It doesn't mean we don't take what we've learned thus far, and at some point before 2026, have that conversation about how do we analyze our strategic plan, involve the community once again, and then move forward. So I would hope that your former suggestion or question of do we look at this and readjust, if I understood that, would be where we would go at some point. So I would, without this prompt, I would probably be coming to you a year and a half from now suggesting that same thing. I do believe that this gives us still a great target to continue to work towards, even with the pandemic and the years that we lost. So I would recommend that until we come forward with that suggestion to re-engage, that we would keep this as our kind of our North Star goal.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the board?
I just want to thank you for adding all of the additional information, and it's been helpful. I think I was one of the people who requested additional information. I think having all of this extra data and the data that breaks down by the various subgroups is certainly really important to me, and I think important to the board as a whole as we looked at all of the district activities and policies and outcomes through the lens of equity. And so it's really helpful to see that the data disaggregated in that way. Let's see, I had a question. For the areas that you had mentioned throughout the 5 goals, that there's maybe one or 2 or 3 areas that we don't necessarily measure, for example, cultural competence, and there was a few others. How do we, so taking into consideration that the community developed these goals and had a lot of input in that, how are we addressing those topics in what we do if we're not measuring progress in those areas?
I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to let Dr. Green clean up whatever I say. Culturally relevant teaching is part of our three levers. And I'll go back to that slide because it's called out under our instructional framework as a key piece of how we do business. We could find a way to measure things, but continuing to measure more and more and more outcomes is not necessarily the best use of our time. And I would posit that sometimes the most important things in life are not truly measurable. And we can look at cultural competence in terms of our students who participate in our dual language program, because sociocultural competence is one of the three key pillars of that program. And the majority of our students who come through that program, kindergarten through 8th grade, are going to walk out with that. But in terms of measuring it, I think it would be rife with personal subjectivity on what qualifies as that, and whoever's going to define how we measure that. I just think that would be a very difficult item to look at. That doesn't preclude us from doing work in that area as a district and as a system. There's one also about, I think, students being racial equity advocates. And I would argue, you've heard from our students and our student advisory council, but to go out and ask every one of our high school students, do you consider yourself a racial advocate? I mean, we could do that, but it might be better off for us to invest in making sure teachers are using high quality math materials and that they know how to use them. That might be more what we should be focused on. I'm going to turn it over to you. I told you I was going to let you clean up my mess.
Well, I appreciate you buying me some time to think that through. I do think that she answered that just very well. I'll take the example of our equity policy, for example. So moving away from the strategic plan to the equity policy, as the students have worked on the student voice policy, what they've recognized is that there are imperfections in the equity policy. So for example, there's a measurement or there's a statement around joy, students feeling joy. And so we've had some extensive conversations about what does that mean and how do we quantify that? And if we were to go back and bring this to the board at this time, would there be some type of an adjustment that would be made that would then allow us to have a better measure? And I think that there are some similarities, especially when you look at how many different goals we can break down in our strategic plan. So I think one of the strengths of our teaching and learning department is exactly what you're seeing on the screen right there. And it's how Dr. Rodriguez and her team have aligned us to the three goals in front of us, knowing that it's kind of like that belonging statement that we had with WASDA. If you're focused on belonging, you're looking at engagement. Engagement is the achievement and drawing a direct correlation. I'm concerned about 140 plus different goals that we do have in our strategic plan and how many of those we can actually quantify. So I think I'll let the statement that Dr. Rodriguez made around, it does get difficult to quantify some things. We can, but where do we spend our time?
And I wouldn't necessarily advocate that we measure each of those indicators, but from the community perspective, addressing it in some way. And so I think you have. And so I think that might be just something to consider moving forward, that although there's not a specific indicator, talking about the way we are addressing it. And I think that what you said makes a lot of sense. You also talked about the disparities when we looked at the disaggregated data by subgroup. You talked about disparities and pointed a couple out. How does you or the district take that information into account as you plan for the next year or the next teaching and learning cycle?
So thank you for that segue, because it really does go right into the school improvement plans, which you guys will receive this evening, and we have it scheduled for approval at next week's business meeting. So those school improvement plans really are an opportunity for individual schools to look at that disaggregated data, but specific to their particular school, and that is how they derive their school improvement plans. So for example, when we visited Franklin Middle School and you had Principal Anderson, who shared, we have a goal around this subgroup of students or that subgroup of students. That's because they have been paying attention to their disaggregated data and they know where they need to focus more efforts, more time, more interventions, more investments. At a district level, principal supervision is one of our levers. So our principal supervisors obviously are looking at this data with their principals and asking a lot of good questions and helping principals think through, what does that mean for our school? How are we working towards improving that if there is a gap there that we're seeing, an equity gap? And then in addition, I would say more broadly as a school district, and I'm looking at my friend of fiscal services who's on his phone, Jay Cooper, I'm just like calling you out. Right. When we look at staffing, which is really a partnership between human resources, teaching and learning, and fiscal services, we're thinking about, people are our most important investment as a system. 85% of our revenue goes to pay for staff in Yakima School District, if not more. And so thinking about who are the people we need and how should they spend their time based on that disaggregated data. Nancy Smith was here before. I'm just calling them all out. And so she's thinking about special education services and what is it that we need to support and what additional staff might we need, because you did see in some of those, several of those categories, students with disabilities are not performing at the same level as their peers. And so that requires additional investment in order to address that.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate all the extra, I'm sure a lot of extra effort to add in all those additional data sources. I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns? Okay, again, thank you so much. I won't ask you how many hours it took to do that. Okay. Okay, moving on. We do have approval of a school calendar for the 23-24 school year, and it's back to Dr. Rodriguez.
It's the Dr. Rodriguez show this evening. Thank you, Board President Walker, members of the board. As you also heard from public comment tonight, we are before you to seek approval of the 23-24 school calendar option C. We've presented this twice previously at the December 13th board meeting and also at the January 9th board retreat, where you had the opportunity to hear from some of our students representing the Superintendent Student Advisory Council on their thoughts. Did want to share with you that all three options are compliant with state basic education requirements under RCW 28A 150-220. I would just like to remind the board, I guess, of a couple of pieces as part of our agreement with YEA and our teachers. There are some hard start and end dates, so we have maximized that time to ensure that our students have the longest continuous opportunity to have instruction that is possible under that agreement. And certainly I understand the concerns around teacher burnout in October. That's been a long-standing thing since I was a baby teacher. I remember being so tired in October. But if you look at option C, I just wanted to kind of walk you through, we're in instruction for about 10 weeks, although there are some 3-day weekends, which we all love, no matter what our role is in the organization, followed by a conference week, 1 full week, and then a week off for Thanksgiving, followed by 3.5 weeks. Then we have a winter break, followed by 5 weeks. Then we have a week for intercession, 3 weeks, then another conference week, 3 weeks, then spring break. And then we have another 10.5 week stretch. So there's a long stretch both at the start of the school year and at the end of the school year. And to a large degree, that is based on where holidays fall. Which I have no control over, despite popular opinion. And then you can see the week of PD that's built in. Primarily, it's for our administrators. We really want to, under that principal leadership lever, ensure that we have strong professional development and professional learning ongoing, but we like some intensive time with them. And June and August is the only time we can get that. So we've designated that on the calendar for PD. We've built in a 4-week summer school session, and then there is 4 weeks between the end of summer school proposed in this calendar and the start of the school year. And if I look to my left at the person in charge of overseeing maintenance and operations, he would back me up and tell you he absolutely must have a minimum of 4 weeks in order to clean schools and have them ready to turn around to start the new school year. So we've tried to balance all of the competing priorities to both extend the year as much as possible, meet the needs of our operations to ensure that our students have a safe, clean learning environment, as well as be responsive to our community who expressed pretty strongly last year that they are not interested in year-round school here in Yakima. So we do believe that option C is instructionally sound and that we can make great gains for our kids, as well as really meet the competing needs of our many stakeholders here in Yakima. Happy to answer any questions.
I just have a comment. I will be supporting option C, but I hope at some point in time we can get to a more balanced calendar where we don't have those 10.5 weeks at the beginning and those 10.5 weeks at the end without some sort of break in between. Because I know that staff is really tired in October, and they are really, really, really tired by the end of school. And if we could somehow work to better balance those days and provide some break time in there, I think everybody would find out that they're a lot happier with that calendar. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I think my only comment, I think option C is interesting. It's an interesting adjustment. I appreciated your comments the last time we discussed this. I think that it's, we get into a process of presentations and discussion, and we don't sometimes really get the opportunity to ask you guys what your opinion really is and what you think we should be working towards. And I think that we have an opportunity and an obligation to discuss that more, maybe at every retreat as we go forward. And we just have to always remember that the most important group out there are our students and the success of our students. And everything else, no matter how valid and how important, has to take a back burner. There are huge commercial buildings all around the world that are open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they're capable of maintaining their facilities. Very few of them have to shut down for an entire month to provide maintenance. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are more than just a property-rich HR department employing 2,000 people. We are in charge of making sure these kids have the best opportunity for the best education to provide them with the skills that they need to survive in life. And so I will vote for this happily today, and I will continue to advocate for expanding on this calendar for our kids for as long as I'm on the board. But I really appreciate your opinion and your expertise on this, so thank you.
Yeah. Any other? Okay. Well, I will support option C as well, but being one of the voices in the dark, will never be satisfied any longer with a 180-day school year. But that's not an issue we can solve here. That takes a statewide effort and working with unions and parents and everyone. But that's another whole issue. But we do the best with the limitations we have, and this looks like our best option. So if there are no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve option C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve option C for our next calendar. Barb, would you like, or who's going to call the roll today? Okay.
Director Beckett?
Aye.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker,
Aye.
and Director Navarro Jr. is excused.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Now we get to spend some money. Dr. Darling.
Thank you, Board President Walker. So we are entering phase 2 of our Discovery Early Learning Center. As you remember, phase 1 was repurposing the Discovery Lab School and moving all but 6 of our early learning classrooms to that site. It involved a significant remodel to the point where there were hammers and chisels being swung a few days before students were going to arrive. And so I know that Principal Jamie Johnson, Dr. Johnson was keeping everybody at bay, knowing that it was going to be any moment. And so we are now entering phase 2 of that process. We need to construct classrooms, some more office space and administrative spaces to be able to remove the remaining classrooms that are currently at Hoover. So this request is to approve $10,578,425 from the ESSER 3 ARP funds to pay for the to this early learning edition. And another background is, in order to get this approved, we first have to go through the approval process with OSPI to get these funds approved, and we've already gone through that. So this is the final step before we can sign on the contract.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve spending of OSPI approved ESSER 3 ARP funds for construction at the Discovery Early Learning Center in the amount of $10,578,425.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the spending for construction at Discovery Early Learning Center. Would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next up, we have an amendment to Operational Procedure 6210, Purchasing Authorization and Control. Mr. No.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. We're asking that you approve an amendment to Operational Procedure 6210, which is Purchasing Authorization and Control, providing that any requisition for an expenditure $500,000 or over be presented to the Board for approval. You may recall that the way the operational procedure reads right now is that, and I apologize, there's an error in the recommended action and the error in my action letter. It says $250,000, but it's actually currently at $200,000. So any item that requires expenditure over $200,000 comes before the Board currently. We're asking that that be raised up to the $500,000 limit. The discussions that we've had include the fact that if we bring every contract for $200,000 or more to the Board, it serves to congest the Board's docket. There's no statutory or legal reason for having the threshold set at $200,000. We just think it's a more efficient use of staff time, more efficient use of the Board's time to set the statutory limitation at, or set our operational procedure threshold limitation at $500,000. So thank you.
We discussed this some prior. Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
Because just another comment, in previous discussions, when we looked at the specific requests that had come before the board hadn't declined to approve any requests that had come through, and so this really is making things a lot more efficient on both sides of the table.
That's correct. We did an analysis, and I believe, although I can't be quoted on this now because I don't have the information in front of me, but I want to say this would eliminate around 19 of the items that were brought to the board over the time that, over the last year. And over the time that I've been here on the board, not one of request has been denied by the board during that time. So it would seek to create a more streamlined approach and would not prohibit the board from knowing expenditures through warrants or some other manner.
I also recall from previous discussions that most school boards don't have this kind of policy that has a threshold, and so we really were an outlier in how we handled these kinds of expenditures. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, the city of Seattle, or excuse me, the Seattle Public Schools in 2021 had a similar operational procedure where they had a $250,000 threshold, and they recently in 2021 raised the threshold to $500,000, or excuse me, $1 million for purchases on things that weren't a public work, and then anything that had to do with facilities or public work, they raised it to $5 million. So for some reason, they had that threshold determination in their operational procedure as well, but they raised the limits on theirs for basically the same reasons we're talking about this evening, just efficiency and freeing up the congestion on board meetings. And the bottom line really is that the superintendent has to stay within budgetary constraints, and the board passes the budget, and the superintendent can't exceed what's authorized through the budget.
Any other questions, comments? Do I hear a motion?
I move that the amendment that they requested, where's the motion that I'm reading? I move that the Board of Directors approve an amendment to Operational Procedures 6210, raising the threshold for bringing requisitions for expenditures to the board for approval from $200,000 to $500,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend Operational Procedure 6210. Would you call the roll, please, Liz?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
Vice President Villanueva,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're back to policy governance monitoring reports, and we're back at, second opportunity. Oh, that's not on my, oh, there it is. Second opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone? No. Okay. Thanks, Graciela, for keeping me in line there. Okay, moving on to Global Lens report, and that's to Trevor.
Thank you, President Walker, member of the board. I would like to bring to your attention, it's in the public content, the schedule that I gave you for the approval of the ends report. As you may remember, I slowed things down, backed up, and set some new dates for us to make sure that we had enough time to analyze the data that was brought forth tonight by Dr. Rodriguez, and I know you've had that for some time. However, I did notice that the February 7th date, which is tomorrow, that is the date the SurveyMonkey will be sent to the board, and there's a 3-day turnaround. I'm also aware that we have the school improvement plans for you to look at over the next week. So I just want to make sure that if you need more time for that SurveyMonkey with everything that you have in front of you, that we consider it that and alter any timeline that would be a benefit to the board in completing the SurveyMonkey and the analysis of the school improvement plans. So we could leave that at February 7th as stated. We could move that out to a later time if that would serve the board better.
I think the February 10 date is sufficient time considering we've had the additional information in our emails for quite some time. Do want to make a clarification though. When I see February 10th as a due date, to me that means February 10th, end of business. Is that, can I confirm that's correct, or is that not correct?
I'm being told we can make it that, so it doesn't sound like it is that. So will that work, Bart? What would you prefer? What would work for you on that date? 11:59?
Yes. and 59 seconds.
Okay.
No,
Can we do that?
If
can do
the deadline is sooner, that's fine. But in my mind, I always assume end of business unless it's said
Why don't
otherwise.
we'll extend it for the entire day. We know that you're very busy, and thank you for clarifying. So we'll push that out. Thank you. So we'll maintain the current schedule, and we'll just make sure that that due date is at the end of the entire day and not just the workday.
Okay, any other comments or questions on?
All right.
Okay. And next section, we have, I think this is the first reading of policies 1003.4, 0.5, 0.6, and 0.7.
Is it first reading or just reviewing policies?
It's a review of the policy.
It's first review of the policy. So do I have a volunteer to summarize 1000.3.4? Are those assigned? Do we assign?
Yeah, I think yeah.
Where's not?
You would assign that to
I think that was
Director Navarro, so.
Oh, so
that's
that's you,
what we
yeah.
assigned, I'm
We did assign those, yeah.
I got it.
You had your assigned presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The board, all right, hold on, let me make this bigger. The board president's role, the president of the board provides leadership to the board, ensures integrity of the board's process, exercises interpretive responsibilities, and serves as the board's official spokesperson. The board president's job is to ensure the board's conduct is consistent with its own rules and those legitimately imposed upon it from outside the district. Meeting discussion, the content will be on those issues which, according to board policy, clearly belong to the board to decide or to monitor. Discussion of incidental information that is neither for monitoring nor board decision will be minimized. Deliberation will be fair, open, and thorough, but also timely, orderly, and kept to the point. And when requested, board meetings will include opportunity for board self-assessment. The authority of the board president consists of making decisions consistent with board policies on governance and governance process and board superintendent linkage, with the exception of employment and termination of the superintendent, instances where the board specifically delegates portion of this authority to others. The board president is authorized to use any reasonable interpretation of the provisions in these policies. Board president is empowered to conduct board meetings with all commonly accepted power of that position. The board president has no authority to make decisions about policies created by the board within the ends, goals, and executive limitation policy areas. And the board president has no authority as an individual board member to supervise or direct the superintendent. The board president will usually represent the board to outside parties in announcing board stated positions and in stating chair decisions and interpretations. The board president may delegate authority, but remains accountable for its use. Other duties of the president include compiling and facilitating the board's evaluation of the superintendent, executing all documents authorized by the board, except as otherwise provided by law, and on behalf of the board and in concert with the superintendent, developing proposed board meeting agendas consistent with the board's annual calendar. The vice president shall preside at board meetings in the absence of the president and perform all of the duties of the president in case of the president's absence.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, and I believe the Survey Monkey will go out on these and be due the 17th, is that correct? I think so, okay. Next up, we have Board Members Code of Conduct, 1000.3.5.
That's mine. The Board of Directors commits itself and its members to ethical, businesslike, and lawful conduct, including proper use of authority and appropriate decorum. It has the right to expect adherence to this code of conduct. The board is mindful that actions of board members, even outside of official board business, reflect on the board and the district as a whole. Board members will represent the interests of the entire community. This accountability to the whole district supersedes any conflicting loyalty a member may have to other advocacy or interest groups, as well as loyalty based upon membership or on other boards or staffs. Conflicts based upon the personal interests of any board member who is also a parent of a student in the district, or conflicts based upon being a relative of an employee in the district. Members must avoid conflicts of interest with respect to their fiduciary responsibilities. As required by Washington state law, members will annually disclose to the Public Disclosure Commission their involvements with other organizations, with vendors, or with any associations. When the board is to decide upon an issue about which a member has an unavoidable conflict of interest, that member shall absent him or herself without comment, not only from the vote, but also from the deliberation. When the board is to decide upon an issue about which a member has an outside association that is not clearly an unavoidable conflict of interest as described above, but that might cause questions of a conflict, that member will disclose to the whole board, which will which will determine whether or not the member shall absent him or herself as described above. Board members will not use their board position to obtain employment in the organization for themselves, family members, or close associates. Board members may not attempt to exercise individual authority over the organization. Members will not give personal direction to any part of the operational organization or assume personal responsibility for resolving operational problems or complaints. Members' interaction with the public, press, or other entities must recognize the same limitations and the inability of any board member, except for the president or designee, to speak for the board, except to repeat explicitly stated board decisions. Except for participation in board deliberations about whether the superintendent has achieved any reasonable interpretation of board policy, members will not publicly express individual negative judgment of performance of the superintendent or employees of the superintendent or district. Members will respect the confidentiality appropriate to issues of a sensitive nature and other matters that may compromise the integrity or legal standing of the board and district. Executive and closed sessions are confidential. Discussion held in executive and closed sessions are not to be discussed with anyone other than the board members, superintendent, or legal counsel. To build trust among members and to ensure an environment conducive to effective governance, individual members will focus on issues rather than personalities, support decisions of the full board, exercise honesty in all written and interpersonal interaction, never intentionally misleading or misinforming one another, criticize privately, praise publicly, make every reasonable effort to protect the integrity and promote the positive image of the district and one another. Never embarrass each other or the district. maintain an effort to foster unity and harmony within the board, abide by their own rules and policies, grow as a board member by attending workshops and other in-service training, not surprise the superintendent or board members at board meetings or public venues. That's it.
Thank you, Martha. Any questions, comments? Okay, moving on to 1000.3.6, Board Committee Principles.
I have that one.
And just a comment here, in the time I've been on the board, we have not had a board committee. So, just so.
That was kind of a question I had, yes.
Yeah.
Board committee principles, 1000.3.6. Board committees, when used, will be assigned so as to reinforce the wholeness of the board's job and so as to never interfere with delegation from board to superintendent. Board committees will be advisory in nature. The school board may accept or reject all or some of the committee's recommendations. Accordingly, and I will paraphrase these.
Feel free.
Board committees are to help the board do its job as defined in policy 1000.3.2, not to help or advise the staff. Board committees may not speak or act for the board except when formally given such authority. Board committees cannot exercise authority over the superintendent or staff. Board committees are to avoid over-identification with organizational parts rather than the whole. Committees will be used sparingly and ordinarily in an ad hoc capacity. Committees report to the board as a whole and not to individual board members. Composition of the committee shall be according to its stated purpose. The policy applies to any group which is formed by board action, whether or not it is called a committee, and regardless whether the group includes board members. It does not apply to committees formed under the authority of the superintendent. All requirements of the Open Meetings Act which bind the work of the board also bind the work of board committees.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions, comments? Okay, and last up is 1000.3.7, which is essentially a template for structuring a board committee and reporting out, setting the parameters for that committee. And since we don't have any, I'm not sure we need to read that. We can look through it.
I think you just reviewed it.
Respond to the Survey Monkey. So, any other questions about those policies? Okay. So, there is a need for a 15-minute executive session this evening.
Yes, there is, for the purpose of potential litigation or pending litigation with legal counsel.
Okay. Yeah, so we need a motion to adjourn, not adjourn, we need a motion to move to executive session. Yeah.
So moved. At what time? Do you, like, immediately?
Do you need a 5-minute break before we do that, or you? 5-minute break, okay. 7 o'clock to 7:15 in the professional library. Okay, it's been moved by Martha.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
let's just go all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. I don't think. Welcome back to the general meeting. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns for this evening's meeting? Meeting adjourned.